So this is a diagram of what we call the scientific method. One second. And so it goes from what we know how science works. So there's an interesting observation. There's a question that comes up with that. We make hypotheses, and then we plan experiments and do the experiments to get to a conclusion that supports this observation in a informed manner. And in this process, we often think of peer-reviewed journals coming somewhere between what the arrow is here, since we need to provide service a review process that is fair and unbiased. And then scientists also want to promote their work and disseminate the findings. And we as a publishing group also help scientists do that. And the question we can also have is, are we promoting the work in an unbiased manner? Are we promoting the work of diverse scientists? But yeah, in addition to this particular point in the scientific method, there are other areas where we can all, and publishing can have an influence. So for example, when we're assessing a work based on the hypothesis, are we publishing work that has been framed from the start in an unbiased manner? And in the experimental designs, are we publishing work where the experiments have been properly controlled with sample diversity in mind? So as an example, it is quite well documented that women and men respond differently to different interventions. And there's been studies showing that women are more likely to have adverse side effects from medications than men, because drug dosages have historically been based on clinical trials conducted on men. And that type of clinical trial is not an accurate reflection of our community as a whole. There is actually another Researcher Academy webinar that talks about how to integrate gender and intersectional analysis into research, with plenty of examples like this, and I would encourage you to check that out if you have the time. So when I took on the role of Inclusion and Diversity Officer at Cell Press, it helped me to think about 3 specific pillars that needed to be sustained for Cell Press to contribute to conversations of inclusion, equity, diversity, and accountability also. And one is that of Cell Press as a workplace. We, as Cell Press employees, needed to have an inclusive and safe workplace for all. Because we are making decisions with lasting impact, and for us to be making decisions that is equitable and unbiased, we also needed to foster those values internally. Second was to look at Cell Press as a business. Because it's a business, it has its systems in place, it has policies in place. So we needed to look at our business practices and review the systems that have been in place, collect data, and make adjustments where necessary. And finally, looking at Cell Press as a community partner. We very much value the role that we play as partner to the scientific community, and we needed to use our platform to promote the values we find important more widely, and increase visibility of underrepresented members of said community. And today I will talk mostly about these 2 last pillars, the Cell Press as a business and Cell Press as a community partner, starting with Cell Press as a community partner. So what we do best, hopefully, as a scientific publishing group is to provide a platform for interesting content. So we are using what we are good at, this platform, to publish content promoting diversity, inclusion, and equity at various degrees and scope, from journal level to the higher publisher level. So at Cell Press, each of our journal is editorially independent. So each journal has its own team of editors and staff in-house. So our various editorial group have used their own editorial space to take a stance on important issues. So you can read several editorials published by our editors and editor-in-chiefs. And this sends the message that we are addressing these issues more directly, and quite often with a personal reflection, and we're sending the message to the audience that these are issues important to the journal. We are also actively commissioning from and publishing the voices of scientists of underrepresented background. So for example, the commentary that I show here on the left is a commentary published from a network of women faculty in biomedical engineering, and it was a call to action to the National Institutes of Health and other funding agencies to address disparities in allocating financial and other support to Black researchers. And this piece has indeed supported changes and encouraged further discussions with the NIH directly, and we are seeing active conversations happening in funding agencies. And of course, the ongoing pandemic has highlighted and exacerbated existing inequities, either that is in healthcare access or the support that early career researchers get. And various journals at Cell Press have also published pieces on these, giving voices to those most affected. So going beyond individual articles, our journals have also planned whole special issues around topics of high importance, as you can see in some of the examples. And we are also leveraging the power of multiple journals. The Trends journals, as I mentioned, is a collective of 16 journals, reviews-only journals, and cover science from chemistry to ecology to evolution. And Trends Voices, here that I show here, is a Trends-wide initiative for all 16 journals, and represents quarterly collections of articles. We amplify perspective of important and timely topics that will drive science forward, which this year we have a focus on inclusion and diversity. So with this, we get to highlight the voices of the authors who write for us, but also talk about how our editors see these issues. And we also have are providing Meet the Editor sessions where any scientist can sign up for a short meeting with editor and talk about a topic of their choice. So this is something that our colleagues at the Lancet journals, which is another group of medical journals published under Elsevier, have also used. They've used editorial voice quite prominently in shaping the content of their journals. The Lancet's group has had a standing commitment in improving gender balance in science and medicine, for example, and they've used editorial space, their front matter space, quite effectively on that front. So as you can see, we have been more intentional in creating and publishing content that addresses inequities and lack of inclusion and diversity. So we do get comments and criticism on that. We have people saying, why are you politicizing science? I came to Cell to read about this cool study on, I don't know, on microbiome or NF-kappa B, and you're talking about other things. And to that, I would like to kind of explain how scientists are people also with their own opinions, biases, and beliefs that have shaped the studies that they do. For example, my decision to study malaria was directly influenced by my personal experiences growing up in a malaria endemic country. And there are also wrong opinions that I've had when choosing my field of study. I remember when I was younger, I said to one of my professors, I don't want to study cancer because cancer is a disease that you only see in rich countries. And that is fundamentally not true. And but that was my bias at the time, where I felt like there wasn't more need for cancer biologists, for example. So you can only imagine how that kind of opinion can influence people. And if those people are at a place where they can direct funding, so where they can direct research groups, it does influence how scientific research is done. Again, taking the example of the pandemic, we have seen how something that of prime priority to our society right now has led where the funding goes, and that has led to incredible advances in a short time. And we have seen how politicians have used science, so data coming out about masks and vaccines, to make political decisions that influence the larger society. It had also been misused. Any study that had incorrect science showing the effect of a particular drug, for example, which wasn't sustained, or even the larger problem about how the debunked science of how vaccine leads to autism keeps coming up to make this to be misused in society. So in a way, I do not think we have the options to just stick to science. We are very much intertwined as a community to talk about these things. So in addition to written content, we are also using our platform to increase visibility in other ways. So these are some examples from our colleagues at the Lancet and how they're making distinct image choices when talking about scientists. For example, this tweet in the middle shows when the Lancet published an image of surgery in Africa by depicting an African surgical team with the lens centered of the female surgeon. And that was a deliberate editorial choice, going beyond some of what we may think is a quote unquote typical image of a surgeon. Cell also has launched a social media campaign last year titled Faces of Cell. And this social media campaign is highlighting authors that have published in Cell. And we wanted anyone to see themselves reflected when they think about what a Cell author may look like. And this has since turned into a website, which you can check out. And this, in turn, creates a network of diverse scientists and can be also be used as a resource when anyone is looking, for example, for an author, a reviewer, if you want someone to present in your department seminar, or if you're looking for collaborators, you can sort them by their field of study and see, again, the diversity that already exists in our field. In science. I also want to highlight these Cell Mentor posts. So Cell Mentor is an online resource blog curated by Cell Press, and it has posts on inspiring scientists of, again, diverse backgrounds. And last year, we were very excited to launch the Rising Black Scientist Award in collaboration with Cell Signaling Technologies. And this is an essay-based award which recognizes the individual stories as well as the science of up-and-coming Black scientists. And we had one winner from the undergraduate pool and another winner from the graduate/postdoctoral pool fellows. And our long-term goal for this is to support talented and motivated young Black scientists in their journey and create a network, a support system. So this award was also supported by an academic advisory board who helped us evaluate the essays and also direct the direction of the award. The essays of these winners were published in Cell. Again, I really encourage you to read them if you have a moment. And the 2021 applications are now open, so do look into it. I can share the link, share with your network. Right now, this is limited to scientists in the US and in the life sciences, but we are looking into expanding into all science, into the physical sciences and globally in the future. Again, as you can see, we have been making intentional choices to give more space to underrepresented scientists. And along with that, we get criticism about whether what we're doing maybe is going against the principle that science should be based on merit only. And we've also gotten comments such as, is it not an actual disservice to Black scientists because we are highlighting them just on their race, although that is not our intention. And I would like to say that intentionally expanding space for those that have not had the same visibility and privileges as others do not take away from the merit of these scientists. And before we talk about merit, it is important to reflect how objective measurements of merit have been construed so far. And there is, again, plenty of studies showing that tests like standardized tests that you think is objective actually is not a good indicator of merit, of intelligence, and it's quite related to their cultural and privileged background. This is a little tangential, but for example, when I was studying for the GREs, which is a test that we needed for grad school, at the time in Korea, Korean students were consistently getting lower scores than students that were taking in Japan. And one of the differences was that in Japan, they had moved to online testing with the computer, which gives a better result at the end. So I had the privilege to fly to Japan and take the GRE test and got a better score. And that is not a reflection of my merit, but it was a reflection of the privilege that I had to be able to even do that, to pay for the tickets, to pay for the GRE test, etc. So I think it is historically accurate that science has been traditionally male and traditional white dominated space. So many of the measures are based from a rather homogeneous group. And revisiting those metrics and opening space in a way that is conscious of other factors such as race does not compromise our ability to select for quality. And even though those comments are pointed and critical, I think it reflects that Alchemy as a whole wants Cell Press science to be a space for all. And I'm hoping that the committee can see that this effort is to reinforce the notion, not contradict that. In the last half of the talk, I will talk about reviewing some of our practices and policies, and this goes to looking at Cell Press as a business. And the first one hope you can see the slides, was looking at the compositions of our own people who are making decisions. So in addition to in-house editors, each journal has an advisory board, and we go to the advisory board for, as the name suggests, advice. And when we looked at the gender balance in the advisory board, it was quite unbalanced. This has been boards, put in place since the start of many of our journals. So we re-examined this, and in 2019 actually made the pledge that we will increase the representation of women by at least 30%. And last year, for many of our journals, it got closer to parity of 50%. This is something that, again, our colleagues at the Lancet had taken quite very seriously. They tracked the compositions of women in their reviewer pool, in their editorial staff, as well as a senior management. And they have also made drastic changes to increase representation of women. At the broader Elsevier journals, there is also a drive to have this, what you can see is a tracker of gender diversity when it comes to editors of Elsevier journals. And if you go to an Elsevier journal published by Elsevier, you will be able to see this, again, as an indicator, and also to help to hold us accountable to make the changes that we're going forward. Elsevier has also released a gender report in 2020, which has reviewed practices in the state in globally and in 26 subject areas, pinpointing where participation of women is still lagging, where inequality still remains. And this is far from complete and far from being done. As you can see, it's gender-based only, it's a binary metrics, and there is lots of way to go. But I think by being transparent about this, we are making progress. We have also spelling out specific guidelines. Again, this is a slide I got from my colleague at the Lancet, where they have a specific diversity pledge that they are including in all the commissioning letters, all the reviewer invitation letters. They also have a no panel, so no all-male panel policy, where they are not organizing panels that are all male, and they are not serving as panelists in conferences that are all male. So again, this is really making a stance on things that we care about. One thing that I also wanted to present to you is an initiative that we started at Cell Press, which is the Inclusion and Diversity Statement. So since earlier this year, since it was launched in January, the authors who publish at Cell Press have the option to include a short statement that highlights elements of the study design and or other characteristics that are relevant to inclusion and diversity. This is not that different from already existing statements such as declaration of interest, or acknowledgements, funding, etc. And I'll show you an example of what that form looks like in the next slide. But this initiative has been informed by a number of different factors and discussions and feedback from the community, including this excellent reporting by Catherine Wood at the New York Times that I show you on the right, where it highlighted how many of us in the publishing group say we want to make change, we want to drive change, but we have very little data to actually measure how successful we are being or what we will be. And it is impossible to make that to get relevant data without actually going to people most affected. So this form really is to help us gather basic data and monitor progress in the work that we publish. But it's also a good way, I think, of promoting visibility of underrepresented scientists and to offer our authors, if they choose to do so, a powerful opportunity to share in a visible way their contributions in creating a more inclusive scientific community.